Hey everybody, Tony Chris here. This is an all balded, all bearded version of Off the Highway because I'm with my friend Sean Gladden. Good to see you, Sean.
Good to
Sean,
see you, Tony.
Sean is an author of some great books. He's a speaker and a pastor, and he also works in recovery, helping people with addictions. And so, Sean, the question I have for you today is I'd love to hear you just talk about anything that you've come across that's creative, thoughtful, innovative, that's really helping people process and deal and heal around their addictions.
That's a great question, Tony, and I'd love to talk about one of the things that I think is I see happening all the time, which is people beginning to tell the truth about their addictions. People beginning, and I don't know if that's innovative. It's certainly new. Certainly in the church, certainly in the churches that I'm familiar with, that once you become a Christian, all your problems go away because you were saved.
Right.
And if you're honest with yourself and admit they haven't, most of them gone away, they're still there, there's a pressure not to tell the truth about that. Because if one of us starts to tell the truth about ourselves, that puts the pressure on those around us to do that. And any of us who've grown up in addictive families know that once the addict in the family starts getting healthy, they shine the light on all the brokenness of everybody else who've been happy to focus their attention on the addict as the acceptable broken person.
Right.
So I think one of the innovative things that's happening is that people are actually beginning to tell the truth about our brokenness. We are beginning to tell the truth about all of our addictions, not just the ones that are acceptable, but the ones that are still very difficult to admit to. And I think that is hugely important and wonderful. The challenge is, the first step is just admitting that we're powerless over whatever this is. How do we then move on into beginning to address that? And the great thing is that there are so many different ways of doing that now. 50 years ago there was AA, and that was about it. And in the church, you might get prayed to have the demon of addiction delivered from you, but not a lot of maybe realistic help. Today, there's all kinds of ministries focusing on how to help people recover from addictions, to address often the stuff that's underneath that. And I think there is a genuine movement of God's Spirit, the liberating God of the Exodus, to set people free from addictions.
Sean, I just think from the part of the problem is there's not the freedom from the top, to be really honest. Because the pastor has to be perfect, the leaders have to be perfect, or they're going to be put under church discipline, or they're going to be reprimanded, they're going to lose their job, they're going to lose their way to monetize their life, and so they push everything down. They present this pageant, and then everyone else. How do we begin to deal honestly with our addictions before they become pandemic and rot our lives away?
Right. So while we're still in the age where most pastors go to seminary, or a lot of pastors go to seminary, I think that's the place where it begins. That you have this 3-4 years where you could be in a really healing environment if it's positively encouraged. But that's not just the work of the seminary. That has to also come from the ordination boards of the folk who are seeking ordination. They need the support of the boards of ordained ministry in their own denominations or their sending agencies, to say, if I tell the truth about myself, will you still allow me to continue in this process to fulfill this call in my life or not? Will you monetarily support me in that? And I think to this point, the answer has by and large been no. And so people come to seminary, and there's hard data that up to 50% of people who arrive at seminary have some kind of compulsive behavior that they have engaged in within the 12 months prior to seminary that has been self-identified as problematic, if not addictive, and they get to seminary, and the question is, will I tell the truth about that in my spiritual formation class, in my counseling class, in any class, or am I going to try and squash it down? And many people end up going to seminary in the hopes that in this place I'll finally be delivered from this thing that has just ripped me down all my life, and suddenly, after 6 months of everything being smooth, suddenly something goes wrong, and wow, here it is again. Now what do? I can't even not do this here in seminary. But maybe that's your second year, by which time you put yourself $15,000, $20,000 in a debt, and what do you do then?
Yep.
So I think the good news is I think some seminaries are beginning to take this seriously, and what we need ultimately is wounded healers, as Henri Nouwen would say, and not just folk in the pews, but people telling the truth as pastors, and that's going to require a huge culture shift. But I see it's beginning to happen. I got to pastor a church like that for 7 years with my best friend Matt Russell. There's the National Association for Christians in Recovery. There are a lot of churches beginning to do this, and even some seminaries committing themselves to doing this. And I think, like you say, once the folk in the pulpits take the lead from the folk in the congregation, maybe who are in recovery, then beautiful things will happen. And it's already happening. And I believe that this is a movement of God's Spirit, and it is going to continue to move.
Sean, it's so great. We need a transparency revolution, and maybe we need an honesty ordination system.
Yes,
an ordination system in honesty. So thanks so much, everybody. That's Sean Gladding, author of Story of God, The Story of Us, and 10. Check it out. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Tony.